right, good evening. We're going to go ahead and get started, so if you could grab a seat, and we'll get the meeting started. You should be here tonight for the SR 710 surplus property sales public hearing. We had one on August 6th, and tonight is the second of a series of 2 meetings that are taking place. A couple quick housekeeping things. When you walked in, you should have signed in. If you did not sign in, we would ask you that you please do that before you leave, so we have a record of everyone who attends. We also had handouts that look like this. This is a fact sheet. We have it in both English and Spanish. It has a lot of information about the project, as well as some contact information on the back that will be very useful. You also should have picked up a green card that looks like this. This is a speaker's card. If you would like to make a comment tonight, you are going to need to fill this out. Raul from my staff is walking down the middle aisle here. He has some extras if you forgot to get one. And when you are finished completing it, you would just wave it at him and he'll walk around and pick those up throughout the meeting. You also should have received or picked up a white comment card that looks like this. We do have a box, a comment card box in the back that you can drop this off before you leave if you'd like to fill it out. It also is set up as a self-mailer that you can return on the back side and just put your return address and a stamp and mail it back to us following the meeting. We'll give you all the details for that as we go along. So my name is Chester Britt, and I'm with Ariano Associates. I'm part of the consultant team of LSA, and we have a few individuals from Caltrans as well here tonight. So let me just quickly introduce my staff. I have Raul Velasquez here in the green. He's the one that I mentioned will be picking up the speaker cards. We have Ron Kaczynski with Caltrans here up in front, and we have Garrett as well, who will be speaking as part of the presentation. In the back, we have King Thomas, and we also have Ryan from LSA, and they're manning the board. So throughout the meeting or afterwards, you will be able to go back and look at the boards, ask questions. We also have a number of laptops, if you didn't notice, that are up against the back far wall, and those laptops are there for you to make a comment as well. So tonight we're going to be speaking about an overview of the proposed action. Make sure that you're understanding what it is that we're proposing to do and what the environmental document says about it. We'll be talking about the environmental review process, which tonight is part of the formal record, and then we'll receive public comments. The purpose of the meeting is primarily to provide information. We want to make sure that the public is aware of what's going on and has their information that they need to make a good informed comment. And we also want to describe what the environmental review process is about and how we've been going through that process and what are the findings and the summary of the findings that we've been able to determine through the evaluation process. We also want to make sure that we receive input. Today is a public hearing, and we will be receiving, as I mentioned, your public input. It is not a Q&A session, but we will be allowing you to come up to the mic and make your comment. We have a court reporter up here who will be recording the entire meeting for the purposes of documentation. Okay. We also, as I mentioned, or I just mentioned, actually, the formal oral comment period will come after we are finished with the presentation. Members of the public will be able to provide a formal comment. It will be part of the formal record, and we'll make sure that we receive all those that want to speak. To speak, you do need to fill out a speaker card, so we have it on record. You'll be called to the microphone. I'll call 3 at a time so that you guys can queue up, so we're efficient. And we'll give you 3 minutes, plus or minus. We're not going to give you the hook exactly at 3 minutes, but we would ask that you be mindful of your time. There will be a counter that appears on the screen that will count down to 3 minutes, and we'll get through all the speakers. And we're just asking that you would not try to give your time to someone else. We would like for everyone who wants to speak, but we're going to give you 3 minutes to do that. So I'm going to pass it over to Ron Kaczynski, but before I do, I just wanted to make mention that we do have Gerald Phillips and Bobby Johnson with Majority Floor Leader Chris Holden's 41st District. office with us tonight. And we also have former Senator David Roberti, who will be making a comment later as well. So, Ron?
Okay, thank you, Chester. Okay, my name is Ron Kaczynski. I'm the Deputy for Environmental Planning with Caltrans. And we're here basically today to talk a little bit about the proposal to sell these houses. And I'd like to give you an overview. This won't take, between us and Garrett and I, it takes us about 15, 20 minutes on it. About 50 years ago, a long time ago, the Route 710 project was introduced. Caltrans about that time then started buying properties in this corridor, and we've got to the point now where we buy properties in Pasadena, South Pasadena, and El Sereno. The vast majority of these are in El Sereno, incidentally. And we currently hold about 460 deeds to properties that were acquired. It's been identified that when these properties are no longer necessary for the study, they should be declared excess per the Streets and Highways Code. The purpose of the action basically is to sell the properties that are no longer impacted by the project alternatives, and then also to intend to provide affordable housing in the subject area and remove Caltrans from the property management role regarding these properties. In case you haven't heard, Caltrans hasn't always done a great job in maintaining these properties. It's been kind of ebbs and flows, and as a consequence, probably best if we stay with our focus, which is transportation projects rather than rental properties. The study area is, as I mentioned, basically Pasadena, looking at the area from Pasadena going north on this on the map. And basically that's specifically the area. I should mention there actually were a couple houses in Alhambra that were bought some number of years ago also. So anyway, this is the study area. This is the area where the houses are primarily are all located. We got about 100 and some odd properties in Pasadena, maybe 100 or so in South Pasadena, and then close to 300 properties in the Los Angeles El Sereno area. So let's talk a little bit about the regulations and where we are in that process currently. There are, in October of 2013, Governor Brown signed Senate Bill 416, and that specifies that the properties that are declared surplus will be offered for sale at affordable price to tenants, and then an affordable housing entity. The remaining properties would be sold at fair market value. This bill also provides funds from the sale of property to be deposited in a rehabilitation account that would be used to make repairs on the single-family houses so that low-income and moderate-income houses, people could afford to buy these houses and maintain them. Maintenance is a big issue, of course, especially with the older houses that have in this corridor. Another element of this is that legislation was the foundation of that legislation was the Roberti bill, which was passed back in the 1980s, 1990s sometime, dealing with how properties that are no longer required should be sold. Another element is the affordable sales program, and I should point out that there are regulations that are also out for circulation. Final copies of the regulations are out for circulation currently. The intent at this meeting today is not to take comments on the regulations. The regulation has its own specific process. My understanding is that they, like us, have extended the comment period on the regulations to September 8th. So if you're interested in making insightful comments on the regulations and how they should be implemented, that's something that goes to a different entity. It doesn't go to me specifically. Actually, not sure who they go to. But I'm sure that if you ask some people knowledgeable about this, they can provide you that information. The deadlines for the regulations, I was told today verbally, so don't take my word for it. I was told today verbally that the Secretary of Transportation has extended the regulation guidelines to the 8th of September also. They were supposed to be closed on the 24th today. Yeah. Right. I don't know what, we shouldn't be getting that dialogue here. I wish we didn't interrupt you, please. So let's talk about the alternatives. The first action is the no project action. Anytime you do a CEQA document, you have a no project action, which is, let's just keep going the way we're going. Things are wonderful. Caltrans would retain the ownership of these properties and rent them out. There'd be no change in the environmental conditions, and no sales would take place. This would certainly violate the state's highways code once there's an identification of these properties not being needed. So that's one option. Alternative 2 is the sale option. Let's sell these properties. And there's a variation A and a variation B of this, and then option 1 and option 2 of this sales. Variation A is the sale of the properties over a 5-year period, but retain the subsurface rights for a future tunnel easement, retained under Variation A, Option 1. Variation A, Option 2 is the sale of properties over a 5-year period, with all subsurface rights also conveyed with those properties. So that would be total sale of properties and their subsurface rights. In Variation B, this would be an immediate sale. Someone mentioned this the Thursday meeting, that we have a Variation B, which let's just sell all the properties right away. Let's just sell all of them immediately and move forward. As soon as the environmental document's approved, as soon as the regulations are adopted, let's start moving forward with the sale. And you got the option of selling them immediately, retaining the subsurface rights, and then B2, selling the properties immediately with the subsurface rights also conveyed to the person who's buying them. So those are the various options that we're looking at. And with these options, there are impacts. And Garrett is here today to discuss briefly the environmental impacts of these alternatives. Garrett?
Thank you, Ron. Okay, so what we're doing right now is we're going through the environmental review process. This is an opportunity for Caltrans as an agency to document all the various environmental impacts associated with the action, and then to allow the public and decision makers to make a decision on the alternative that would be used. We evaluate different ways to minimize the impacts of the actions, and we, like I said, evaluate the alternatives of those options. So right now in the environmental process, as you know, we did a notice of preparation back in June of 2014. We have been preparing the draft EIR since then, and now we are at the public hearings. We had 2 of them. One was last Thursday in Sereno, and you're here tonight on the 10th in Pasadena. After the public hearing process is closed, we will look at all the comments that we receive, and then we will go ahead and prepare the final environmental document. So some of the topics that are evaluated in our draft environmental document are land use, community factors, relocations, growth inducement, cultural resources, hazardous waste, and then a cumulative impact section, which looks at the effects of other projects in the area, past, present, and foreseeable future projects. So the summary of the draft environmental document findings are as such. And under alternative 1, we have potential significant impacts to the local plan consistency, which would occur in Pasadena, South Pasadena general plans, and the Mission Street specific plan were amended by the local agencies to reflect properties would not be sold. This would also contribute to a cumulative impact. Under alternative 2, we have a few different types of impacts. Community character could occur due to displacements, subsequent new owners taking residence. The impacts are anticipated to be less than significant, as the affordable sales program is being developed to afford tenants every opportunity to purchase those. And right now we have absolutely no idea how many relocations will occur as a result of the sale. That would happen after the environmental document has been finalized. So in the environmental document right now, we have it listed as not a significant impact. If it gets up to the numbers of about 100, something like that, we may consider it a significant impact, and we'll try and get that language in the final environmental document. Less than significant impacts, this is here is the less than significant impacts associated with those relocations. We're hoping that we don't have any relocations at all, that all the current tenants are able to purchase those properties that they're currently living in. We don't anticipate any growth-inducing impacts because the sale would not result in any need to expand public services or encourage or facilitate economic development associated with it. There's a low potential for impacts to cultural resources resulting in a significant effect may occur because any potentials of these historic properties may fall into further disrepair at the end of it. It's less than significant impacts associated with hazardous waste due to the fact that potential surfaces may contain asbestos and lead-based paint. Couple of comments. So I guess we're going to pass this off over to Britt again, or Chester, sorry.
That's my last name, same person. So how to submit a comment? I mentioned already you should fill out a green speaker card if you'd like to submit a comment. You're also able to fill out the white comment card and leave it in the box before you leave, or you can take it home with you, think about it, fill it out later, and mail it in to us. We also have those computers in the back that are set up, and they're ready to receive your comments. You can just sit down and simply type them in. There's some people there to help you navigate the software to make sure that you understand it. It's very easy. As Ron mentioned, the public comment period has been extended from August 24th to September 8th. So in order for your comment to be part of the formal record, you will need to have it submitted by September 8th. That makes it from a 45-day comment period to a 60-day comment period. If you want to mail a letter, the address for Ron Kaczynski, who spoke earlier, is up on your screen. You can see that. And then also, if you would like to go online, the same software that's used at those computers in the back is set up on this URL address. So if you would like to go to your home computer and go online, you can leave a comment using that as well. And then finally, obviously tonight we're going to take oral comments in the court reporters here. I should mention also that if you do make a comment in any of the forms that I just recommended, it will become part of the final environmental document. Caltrans is required by law to include that in the appendix of the final and respond to each and every comment. So that will be part of the process. So with that, let me find, help me find where all the speaker cards are. Oh, I set them down over there. Hold on one second.
Oh, we have a minute. Let me just say one more thing, in case there's any confusion. This is not the public hearing on the regulations. This is a public hearing on the draft environmental document on how to sell these houses. I cannot say for a fact that the comment period on the regulations has been extended. I was told that verbally today. I have nothing other than a verbal remark from an individual, so that I would not rely on that information regarding the regulations. So just for your information, I'll make that very clear. That this is not a hearing on the regulations, and the regulations themselves may or may not have been, the time frame may or may not have been extended to the September 8th. So I would proceed with finding out what that is officially, probably on the regulations website or wherever they are. I'm done.
Great. Okay, I think we were going to invite former Senator Brody to come forward and make his comment first, if he's here. I should mention, when you come up to make your comment, if you could please state your name yourself, even though I've called your name, just for the record.
Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to speak to you. I'm David Roberti. I'm the author of the Roberti Bill, Roberti Act. Of all the things that I engaged in when I was in the legislature, I didn't know this one was going to end up being the most controversial. Closer to the end, my fault. Last Thursday at the, just a preparatory remark here. Last Thursday at the El Sereno Christian Church, a testimony was given on my behalf, but I prefer that this testimony be regarded definitively as mine. Last week, due to my wife's discharge from the hospital where she has surgery, I did not have the opportunity to speak to the presenter of my remarks, and he thought I had cleared them, so there was confusion, and I would prefer these remarks now to be mine. For the record, I want to thank Caltrans for moving to bring some resolution for that number of tenants who, who for decades have languished in a bureaucratic legislative neverland, wondering if ever the uncertainty of whether they would ever be able to buy their homes would come to fruition. They deserve a resolution of this matter, and they deserve it now, regardless of any pending matters with any other tenants groups who have legitimate concerns. At least 7 of those who are settled in not only their own eyes, but in Caltrans' eyes as well. However, for the 148 tenant households that the modifications to text of proposed regulations and the draft relocation impact report indicate will not be able to purchase their houses under the Roberti Act rules, some further revisions to the proposed regulations and to the proposed reports and the proposed outcome are in order. I'd like to point out that 150% of area median income that is used is contrary to the intent of the Roberti Act, as long as that area is defined as Los Angeles County as a whole. Government Code Section 54835, the preamble to the Roberti Act, calls for the upgrade and preservation of housing. That cannot be done if the people most able to upgrade and preserve are in effect evicted from their homes. Upgrade and preservation expenses are simply higher in the general Pasadena, South Pasadena, and El Sereno areas than they are in Los Angeles County as a whole. In general, a regional area median income is far more appropriate. In addition, the proposed modifications do not clearly take into consideration that some families, because of housing and other exigencies that did not exist way back in 1979 when the Roberti Act passed, are now blended. Empty nesters are returning home, but that return home can give the artificial appearance of economic comfort when the opposite is more likely to be the case. Additionally as well, the revisions do not seem to take into account special expenses such as my eyes are getting bad, special expenses which reduce net income, such as health costs, which affect net income, and some families having this greater than others, job retraining expenses, and education costs, all staggeringly higher than they were way back in 1979 when the Act originally passed. For the families who at present do not qualify, according to the suggested regulatory revisions, please give them more time in order to address these suggested amendments and give them at least a minimum chance to prepare their case. Think of it. 30 years, 40 years have taken place while people have waited for the outcome, the difficulties in bringing the legislature, the local governments, and Caltrans together. And now they're probably going to be allowed 1 month, 2 months in order to prepare something that affects their lifetimes and has affected their lifetimes for years. I ask, hopefully, that more time can be gained for these 148 households at least who would not qualify to buy their homes under the current revisions of the Liberty Act. And at the same time, those who have met the qualifications of Caltrans and have met their own qualifications as well, let them start to buy their homes. They shouldn't be held back simply because there's disputes everywhere else. It could be a win-win situation for everybody, and it's something that I hope Caltrans takes into consideration. So I want to thank Caltrans for moving forward. It's some light at the end of the tunnel, which we've been waiting for years and years, and thank you for giving me the chance to address you.
Thank you. Okay, the first speaker I have is Annette Marcaine, followed by Marie Ibsen Ristigari. And just remember to state your name for the record.
Hi, my name is Annette Marcaine. Well, when I was a little girl, and I'm dating myself when I say this, I remember that we had heard this freeway was going to go through, and we lived in South Pasadena, and I still own that home. And we were going to be like a block from the proposed route, and thought, well, my mother, who was pretty good at making light of things, said, well, you know, if I make Dad his lunch, he could just drive by and I could hand it out the window to him on the freeway. So that's the kind of thing that we were thinking about at the time. Now, I think that it's marvelous that Caltrans is looking at selling these properties, but I do have a few questions in that regard. How is the pricing going to be set? What is the process going to be? Perhaps this is something that is buried and I haven't read that yet, so do take that into consideration. But I really am concerned about that and what kind of pricing really would be on this. It would be lovely if the existing tenants could buy because they put up with a lot of things over the years. And I do agree with what the previous speaker said in that regard. However, there was also a comment, not a comment, but something that I had read about the previous owners being contacted. I'd like to know how that is going to be handled. Most of these folks have probably gone on to other things and really gone on, if you know what I mean. So, with that, those are my questions, and I hope that we can get those answers soon. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Marie. I'm sorry I butchered your last name. I'm sure I got it wrong.
Well, it's a complicated name. I usually go by Gibson. Lisa Gary Guy is my married. Okay, good evening. My name is Marie Ibsen, spelled I-B-S-E-N. Risa Gary Guy, R-I-S-I-G-A-R-I-G-A-I. My address is 534 Orange Grove Avenue in South Pasadena, and I'm a Caltrans tenant. I come before you once again to appeal for a moratorium on the rental increases. I have been advised that to do so is not within the scope of this hearing, but I disagree. The whole process, the audit findings, the rent increases caused by the audit, the affordable sales, the rent qualification processes, the sale of the homes, the environmental impact report are all closely intertwined and interwoven with the Roberti bill. Last hearing, United Caltrans tenants came before you and gave you the authority for the Health and Safety Code 50093 that allows flexibility with regards to the income requirements to qualify for both the affordable sales program and the affordable rent program. To charge 10% increases to reach some perceived fair market value for homes that were ordered by the audit to be fixed and maintained is akin to a type of thievery. The only thing that has been achieved that I can see so far is to continually raise the rents. The rents should never have been raised from the beginning until all the maintenance and improvements on all of the rental properties within the corridor have been completed to bring the properties up to fair market value. That the rental increases are approaching. September 1 will be the fourth 10% increase I have experienced, and it now puts it beyond my monthly budget. Hence, I am moving September 1. Peeling paint, cracked cement, dead trees in need of removal are all hazards at my Caltrans residence. When inspected last, and these were pointed out again, the response was, we do not have a tree trimming contract at this time, and a pamphlet in 2 languages with advice on how to protect my family from dangers of lead came in the mail. This is insanity. How can rental increases be justified? I appeal again for a moratorium on the rental increases, a rollback to 2012 rental rates to reflect the lack of maintenance and repair, and to allow the flexibility to use the median income of the area or city rather than the county median income for qualifying tenants for both the affordable sales and affordable rent programs. With regards to the social impact in the proposed environmental impact report, I am one of the 148 affected families that will be relocated, but this one is being relocated early. Thank you.
Next speaker is Christopher Sutton. And again, if you would like to speak, please fill one out. There's ready to go, and we'll collect those.
My name is Christopher Sutton. My address is 586 Alamo Road, Pasadena. I'm an attorney for a different tenant organization, the Caltrans tenants of the 710 corridor, which are predominantly in South Pass and Pasadena. I will expand on my comments from last Thursday. The reason why the income calculation must be limited to this quarter is because, for example, the notice of this hearing says that this program is only applicable to this quarter, and in fact, 2 provisions of the Roberti law itself, which were ignored in the current 3rd draft of the regulations and have been ignored in the DEIR, state, let me read them out and flip to you. In 54238.3 of the Government Code, which was amended in 1984, from 1979 to 1984, the Roberti bill applied to all surplus Caltrans property statewide. And so in some ways it made sense to say affordable area income, median area income is each county. But then starting in January 1st, 1984, the Roberti bill only applied, and has since applied, only to properties located within these 3 cities, Pasadena, South Pasadena, and the El Sereno part of Los Angeles. So that the area covered by the Roberti Bill under the 1984 amendments is solely that corridor and solely those 3 zip codes. So the area in which the law applies is the area in which you should calculate the income. In addition, 54-238.4, the next section of the Roberti Bill. I'll read the whole thing, and then I may come back later if there's time for another comment. This article is intended to benefit the persons and families subject to displacement and persons and families of low and moderate income. Those are 2 separate categories. People being displaced and people of low and moderate income. This article, in the Roberti Bill, shall be liberally construed to permit such persons or families to enforce the rights, duties, and benefits created by this article. And the draft regulations and the EIR ignore those sections. My final point is, there is a deadline on this Friday, August 14th, to comment on the regulations themselves. The regulation process is being handled through a separate process under the Administrative Procedures Act, and this process is under the California Environmental Quality Act. The deadline on the regulations themselves should be extended to September 8th as well, and the 2 processes should be merged, because you cannot finalize the regulations until the CEQA process is complete, and the decision maker at Caltrans, whoever that is, must wait until the end of the CEQA process to finalize the regulations. So it makes sense that the 2 processes should be merged, the 2 administrative records of the 2 processes should be merged, and everything that was said in this hearing and the CEQA hearings, and everything that was said in the prior APA, Administrative Procedure Act hearings, need to be merged together. Otherwise, what you've done is you've separated comments for a purely procedural reason, and you have failed to meet the CEQA requirement under 21004, which is to mitigate all known impacts, including the displacement of 148 families. And if there's time for a second comment, I'll be back.
Thank you for your comment. The next speaker is Dr. Tom Williams. Dr. Tom Williams. Yeah, there you go.
Good evening. Dr. Tom Williams, 4117 Barrett Road, El Sereno, 900321712. 30-year owner-occupant resident in El Sereno. I've seen Caltrans operating for 30 years. God help you. Okay, first up, extend the CEQA comment period deadline until, let's say, October the 6th, because I don't know how anyone can understand what's going on in the project description. And for the regulations, how can you finalize regulations until the EIR final is certified by who's going to certify the EIR? So you can't really have a regulation enforceable without the CEQA process being completed, and that is certification. Okay, project. What is the project? Is it the actions, or is it the regulations that require certain actions to be implemented within these properties and corridors? Okay, I want to see a project description that says this is an action and this is the regulatory basis for that action. If you don't have that connection, there's something wrong, and perhaps Caltrans is manufacturing some additional efforts along with the normal regulations. Oh, some technical things. All technical studies must be linked on the web page. They finally put the DRIR on the same web page, but there are several other technical studies that need to be there. Also, if possible, all of the references within the documents should be there. From El Sereno, we have a little bit of a problem. For our census data, they went back to the year 2000. and they didn't even use the census data. They went to the LA Times to get the LA Times summary for the census characterization of 90032. And it, by the way, it has changed quite a bit. Okay, action. What is the action? It should not, based on 30 years, it should not be the proposed action or no action. Okay, what happens if there's no action? If there's no action, then we have Caltrans forever. God help us. At 10% every quarter, that's going to be a big hike. So I would highly recommend that it should be the future without the proposed action as being the quotes, no action alternative.
Thank you for your comment. So if anyone would like to speak, now would be the time to turn that in. But my last speaker that I have so far is Don Jones.
I want to thank Senator Roberti on behalf of the Caltrans Tenants Association, the United Caltrans Tenants Association, and those of you who do not belong to any association, but understand the implications of the displacement of 150 of your neighbors. We're not talking about the theoretical concepts. We're talking about the real lives of real people. If you saw Marie Ibsen here, she has to move out September the 1st. Okay? Because of the rate increases. That's a condition that Caltrans has used to keep populating the corridor. There's a phrase called benign neglect, coined by Daniel Patrick Moynihan, that shows how bureaucracies treat people like us. Not with contempt, but with benign neglect. Immune to the consequences of what happens from their actions. Isolated from our reactions, behind no return phone calls, messages that are not returned, deadlines that are precise or imprecise, or fluid or not fluid, regulation that may or may not apply to you. That is the condition that we find ourselves in here with Caltrans. We need to take a look at the objective conditions that Caltrans has forced on the tenants in this corridor for almost 40 years. 17% vacancies. Now, 17% vacancies of over 460 homes, if you were in the private sector, would you allow that amount of vacancies to exist? Deferred maintenance. They put a roof on my home, $108,000. When we did the discovery in our lawsuit, we found out that there had been a competing bid of $40,000. What was the difference? The difference was fraud, corruption, mismanagement. I don't say that. The California State Auditor, Elaine Howe, says that in her 2012 audit that points out mismanagement, nepotism, and even cronyism. If you can imagine that, that people give advantage to their friends and neighbors, read the audit report. You'll see that we're not talking about the theoretical manipulation of the community factors that we live in, but the real application that lead to the displacement of so many people. I want to thank Caltrans for at least giving us a chance to meet, to give us a forum to begin to organize. I don't want to thank them for these regulations. I find them odious. I find them constrictive and not in the best interest of Senator Roberti. But I want to leave with a message of hope. A message of hope that says that we together can change these regulations and change the outcome and solidify the tenor of our community for the long, long haul, not for short-term economic interest. Thank you so much.
The next speaker is Sereno, followed by Sereno.
Hi, good evening, everyone. I'm Raymond, and thank you for Caltrans. Thank you for the public to listen for me briefly. I know there's a lot of emotions here, and living in Los Angeles for 45 years, and I feel the pain here in regards to this, but I was opening up to the gentleman in the back, and he was quite worried about being displaced, and he was asking me some serious questions, and he takes some serious decisions here to place people. And I know a lot of people can't be displaced, they want to stay in the same area, as well as the kids that are growing up in the same neighborhoods that they're used to, and from generation. But I have a solution for this. I'm a private citizen here, but there's a particular 900 acres, not close, far away, within about 5 minutes from subject property. I'm meeting with certain politicians this week, and we're going to work something out for people that need housing, that can't afford particular pricing, so to speak, can't keep up with the economy. And I'm willing to offer those services to you. They come with a home and lot. And depending on if you want to guard it, if you want a yard, I'm sure 900 acres to accommodate these people that are going to be displaced will accommodate them quite nicely. It's very close by off the Glendale 2 freeway, all the way to La Piñana. Close to, it's 900 acres, folks. So for those people that want to inquire, just see me after. And hopefully we can work something out. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, the last speaker I have is Jim Miller.
Hey, my name is Jim Miller, AM4 Fairview Avenue, South Pasadena, California. I'm in North Brazil. A little over half a century ago, my mother, who's a typical little woman from Pasadena or South Pasadena, came to me very upset. She said, our house is going to be turned into an off-ramp to the 710 freeway. Things have changed since then, but still, there's a lot of little women in South Pasadena who are worried about their homes. If you look at the maps for both the tunnel and the houses that were sold, it's very difficult to tell where that tunnel will go, but definitely something that the ERI does not address is what will happen with the vibrations of both the digging and the tunnel underneath all these houses with the people who still live in them. So my question is, what is going to be the route of the tunnel, and how can we determine their effect on those properties? You have a lot of old houses. You'll know what's happening when your doors stick and you can't get in them. So I'd like to have the Caltrans address those questions on the effects of the tunnel. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so we got a new batch. So the first speaker is Roberto Flores, followed by Brenda Blanco, followed by Joe Connell. For the sake of time, if we could just queue up right here, that would make things a lot easier. Roberto Flores, there you are.
My name is Roberto Flores. I live at 2028 Berkshire, South Pasadena, and I've been Caltrans tenants for 23 years, more or less. I'm the first up of 6, I believe. Together we make up one statement. The statement is from the United Caltrans tenants. We want to direct this especially to Mr. Jerry Brown, Kamala Harris, Attorney General, Malcolm Dougherty, Caltrans Director, Mr. Brian Calley, Acting Secretary, California Business Transportation, and Housing Agency, Ms. Carrie Bowen, Director of Caltrans District 7, Mr. Brent Green, Chief Division of Right-of-Way and Land Survey, Ms. Jennifer Loudon, Assistant Chief Division of Right-of-Way and Land Surveys. Mr. Kozinski, this letter is written on behalf of United Caltrans tenants residing primarily in the community of El Sereno. United Caltrans tenants was formed on December 2012 in the wake of Caltrans' ill-conceived imposition of what you've seen as disastrous rent hikes and initiation of the revamping of the Caltrans Affordable Rent Program regulations. UCT, United Caltrans tenants, remains particularly concerned about some recent developments related to the process involving affordable sales, regulations, and the draft environment impact report. Following our circumstances related to our concerns. On July 1st, 2015, Caltrans issued El Sereno Caltrans residents affordable sales regulations and standardized regulatory impact assessment related to the State Route 710 surplus property sales. El Sereno residents were unable to comprehend the legal and technical jargon, not only in the documents but in the titles. On July 7th, 2015, Caltrans issued El Sereno Caltrans residents of the Caltrans Draft Environmental Impact Report, the DEIR, a CD related to the State Route 710 surplus property sales. In addition to documented evidence, not all Caltrans tenants received the DEIR CD. All tenants, without exception, that have self-reported to UCT state that they were unable to comprehend the legal and technical jargon contained in the DEIR. Furthermore, monolingual Spanish-speaking Caltrans residents in El Sereno are even more severely impacted, as they were not provided with a Spanish language DEIR CD. Roughly 50% of the households in El Sereno contain monolingual Spanish-speaking heads of households. In essence, the substantial immigrant population of Caltrans residents in El Sereno is being ignored and denied information that has been provided to other Caltrans residents. UCT believes that this differential treatment points to institutional racism and amounts to the de facto discrimination directed towards Latino Caltrans residents from El Sereno.
Thank you. Followed by Hugo Garcia.
Hi, my name is Brenda Blanco. I am one of those tenants that could be affected. I've lived in El Sereno for over 16 years and I represent United Caltrans tenants today. Okay. Because of Caltrans residential community in El Sereno is unable to simply and comprehend the legal, technical, and English only contained in the aforementioned documents. The community is unable to effectively or meaningfully comment and participate in the community engagement process related to the Caltrans Draft Environmental Impact, referred to as DEIR, State Route 710 surplus property sales. Caltrans has not taken the opportunity to conduct substantive draft information sessions in the community of El Sereno to educate the community on the draft. In the July 7, 2015 notice to the community announcing August 6, 2015 and August 10, 2015 public hearings, Caltrans concedes the following. The meeting will include a brief presentation and then an opportunity will be provided for individuals to speak and provide formal comments. So it is clear that these public hearings will not educate the community on the drafts, most particularly the monolingual Spanish-speaking residents, as Mr. Flores mentioned earlier, would be ill-prepared to understand the proceedings and or make an informed comment because Caltrans has failed to inform them in their language appropriately. Caltrans has made available a draft hard copy for review at El Sereno Library in English only. Caltrans has made a frail and slightly attempt to comply with the Administrative Procedure Act by only translating the cover letters. What is the logic in translating a cover letter and not translating the main document? Because of the lack of clarity by El Sereno Caltrans tenants related to the draft ASPSRIA documents, the United Caltrans tenants are asking for Caltrans to add the additional 3 months to the original deadline of August 24, 2015 for public comments. This would revise and extend the public comment period deadline to November 24, 2015, with the stipulation that the Caltrans issue a Spanish language CD no later than August 31st to all Caltrans households and hold additional draft workshops in the El Sereno community, one in English and one in Spanish, within the newly established comment period. We believe that this request is reasonable, justified, and necessary in order to allow monolingual Spanish-speaking residents time to somehow assimilate these complex documents. Bear in mind that this is necessary because Caltrans has failed again to conduct effective outreach to and address the specific linguistic needs of this well-defined Latino residential area in El Sereno.
Thank you. Joe Connor, followed by Kiko Garcia and Teresa Hernandez.
Joe Connor, 2946 Warwick Avenue, Los Angeles, 90032. One statistic contained in the draft EIR that is most confusing and alarming is that Caltrans calculates that 148 Caltrans households will be displaced and relocated during the home sale process. UCT members do not understand this. How is this massive displacement eviction justified? Caltrans states that this estimate is based on the 2015 DRIR that has only been recently made available. This is not a fair amount of time to absorb this. UCT is requesting that the 2015 DRIR be provided to all Caltrans residents in English and Spanish. As we write this, we have to date contacted Caltrans Deputy District Director Ron Kaczynski's office 2 times and both times have been misdirected to other projects. The I-710 South Draft EIR and the I-710 North Draft EIR. We need additional time to study it and yet another document in addition to 400-page draft EIR. Regarding the projected 148 household displacements, we have the following observations. There will be a disproportionate impact on the working class community of El Sereno due to financial circumstances. UCT believes that if Caltrans' calculation of 148 households is accurate, it is likely that El Sereno residents will bear a disproportionate number of those displacements due to the average financial circumstances of El Sereno residents when compared to other residents affected cities on the I-710 corridor. When viewed in this context, UCT believes that it is but another instance of blatant discrimination on the part of Caltrans, severely affecting Caltrans residents from the predominantly Latino community of El Sereno. Furthermore, the Caltrans needs to be open and transparent with residents and disclose who are those affected tenants and how did Caltrans arrive at this calculation. Where will displaced El Sereno Caltrans residents go to find comparable housing stock? The DIR reports that the following under community impacts: relocations, no impact. There are 148 households anticipated to be displaced. To increase the potential for occupants to obtain financing to purchase and thereby avoid and minimize the number of people displaced, the California Department of Transportation, Caltrans, is working with the California Housing Finance Agency to make financing products available to prospective buyers that are currently readily available in the general lending market. Occupants who do not purchase will be provided advisory assistance to find and relocate to comparable housing, and Caltrans will seek assistance from agencies such as the United States Housing and Urban Development, HUD, to find affordable housing. Thank you.
Hernandez and Alexi Schatz.
My name is Hugo Garcia. I'm from El Sereno. I'm with the United Caltrans tenant and the El Sereno Organizing Committee. So I'm going to follow what Joe was just saying. So Caltrans, in their own words, views uprooting 148 households as no impact. Caltrans' recipe for effective mitigation of the looming homeless crisis is ludicrous. If Caltrans is going to displace roughly 1/3 of their tenants, they need to present a coherent and well-defined relocation plan that articulates and details specifically how Caltrans is going to address the housing needs of the newly created homeless population from El Sereno. UCT asserts that all of the solutions outlined by Caltrans are intangible, non-committal, and will not avoid, minimize, or avert homelessness. The displacement of 148 households will result in classic gentrification in the community of El Sereno. No one is more vulnerable to the effects of gentrification than renters. When prices go up, tenants are pushed out, whether through natural turnover, rent hikes, or evictions. Large increases in rents and home prices and increases in the number of evictions will result in a decline in the proportion of racial minorities and a reduction in the household size, as low-income families are often replaced by young singles and couples. When buildings are sold, buyers are often evict the existing tenants to move in themselves, combine several units, or bring in new tenants at a higher rate. The social, economic, and physical impacts of gentrification often result in serious political conflict exacerbated by differences in race, class, culture, and community character. New ideas begin to emerge about what is desirable and attractive, including standards for architecture, landscaping, public behavior, noise, and nuisance. Gentrification has been the cause of painful conflict throughout the nation, often along racial and economic lines. Neighborhood change is often viewed as a miscarriage of social justice, often in which middle-class newcomers are congratulated for improving a neighborhood whose poor minority residents are displaced by skyrocketing rents and economic change. This is a tremendous loss of affordable housing for the state of California and the city of Los Angeles. It's well documented that throughout the city of LA, we are now and have been experiencing a severe shortage of affordable housing. To contribute to this affordable housing crisis affecting the most vulnerable members of our community is unconscionable and illustrates Caltrans' callous disregard for the health, education, and welfare of communities. UCT asserts that the National Environmental Policy Act, NEPA, established in 1969, requires federal agencies to analyze the environmental impact of actions that significantly affect the quality of the human environment. And the California Environmental Quality Act, CEQA, requires agencies to identify the significant effects on the environment of a project, to identify alternatives to the project, and to indicate the manner in which those significant effects can be mitigated or avoided. UCT is making it clear to Caltrans that their failure to recognize and mitigate the significant effects of this project, especially those related to the projected 148 household displacements, is a clear violation of NEPA and CEQA statutes and raises a possibility of legal action on the part of El Sereno residents. Thank you.
My name is Teresa Hernandez-Cano. I'm a resident of El Sereno and a little history. My parents were neighbors, unfortunately, who fell in love with Chavez Ravine, meaning my grandparents both got $7,000 for their home, not even free Dodger tickets as if we would go. And my father fought in World War II and bought that house on the GI Bill. My mother was a riveter. To think that this project is going to continue, I know my parents looking down from heaven, would definitely say, not on my dime and not on my daughter's time. But to continue with Hugo's statement, to grant an extension for these important matters is not without precedent. In the past, Caltrans granted up to 2 extensions in the same public comment period. Please reference UCT's letter from Hugo Garcia and Roberto Flores dated March 31st, 2015 to Brent Green and Jennifer Loudon. As we did then, we again cite the following. Administrative Procedure Act of 1946 was established with the following stated reasons. The language of many regulations is frequently unclear and unnecessarily complex. It is often confusing to the person who must comply with the regulations. The complexity and lack of clarity in many regulations put small businesses, basically the public, which do not have the resources to hire experts to assist them at a distinct disadvantage. Ironically, this 1946 issue regarding state acknowledgement of complex understanding regulatory language is directed to the English language population. Fast forward today, especially as it relates to the shift in demographics, the following must be taken into consideration. The 2014 Census Bureau reported about 14.99 million Latinos live in California, edging out the 14.92 million whites in the state. The country's Latino population is now 55.4 million. California and Los Angeles County have the largest Latino populations of any state or county in the nation, according to the new figures. The demographic shift has been a long time coming. According to state figures, in 1970, the 2.4 million Latinos in California accounted for 12% of the population, while the 15.5 million whites in the state made up more than 3/4 of residents. By 1990, the Latino population jumped to 7.7 million, or about 25% of the state's population. California is a harbinger of the national rise in Latinos. The nation's Latino population has grown 57% since 2000, when Latinos numbered 35.3 million. Latinos accounted for most of the nation's growth, 56% from 2000 to 2010, according to the Pew Research Bureau. The continued influx and growth of Latinos in the United States is not being fueled exclusively by immigration, but by second and third generation immigrants becoming residents and starting family. This quote is from Marcelo Suarez Orozco, Professor and Dean of Education at UCLA's Graduate School of Education and Information Studies. So what is the point of all this data? Bottom line, Caltrans needs to deal with and address all outreach and linguistic needs of the principally Latino community of El Sereno in a fair and appropriate manner. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Alexei Schatz, Caltrans tenant, South Pasadena. UCT, as well as the El Sereno Organizing Committee, ESOC, have repeatedly complained to Caltrans and local elected officials about the continued substandard outreach practices by Caltrans and their consultants. Yet it continues. In fact, it was addressed in a letter dated March 1st, 2013, from our local elected representatives sent to Caltrans officials Malcolm Doherty, Brian Kelly, and Michael Myers. This letter noted the following. Beyond citing recommendations made by the CSA, Caltrans has failed to, number one, conduct outreach meetings in the affected communities to explain the change in policy or the qualification criteria for the affordable rent program. Number two, provide information in any language other than English, which represents a challenge for those tenants whose primary language is not English. Number three, make reasonable accommodations for all tenants who have limited English skills, including having all notices and information disseminated to tenants available in their primary language, and a person with bilingual skills available at all public meetings with tenants as needed. The following state legislatures signed this letter: Senator Ed Hernandez, Assemblymember Jimmy Gomez, Senator Carol Liu, Assemblymember Chris Holden. To this day, Caltrans continues to not recognize or act on the linguistic needs of the El Sereno community. That needs to change. In conclusion, UCT requests the following: that Caltrans add an additional 3 months to the original public comment deadline of August 24th, 2015. This would extend the original public comment period to November 24th, 2015. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker is Lisa. I have another card that says Lisa Almeida. Is it the same one? Okay.
I lost my voice.
Oh, no problem.
So I brought some help in case it goes out, okay? My name is Lisa Almeida, Caltrans tenant for 30 years in El Sereno. Mom, 38 years, which I feel she owns the house by now, and many other tenants do too. On housing issues of our tenants, you need to remove the wording fair market value. That needs to be removed out of your vocabulary. Houses, to my understanding, are to be sold as is from the amendment of Carol Liu. We Caltrans tenants feel have not kept up maintenance on homes. Many live with mold, and that's done how they tell the people. They bleach it, they paint it, and they say it's fixed. Okay, next, on the issue of the 148 houses, houses that are families being displaced. How did Caltrans come to this conclusion, and why is it not being disclosed to whom and where? I feel they have a right to know. Therefore, we need 90-day period longer. We need it to extend to 90 days to study this more, the regulations. And last, on the issues, wait a minute, I read that already. And last, our outreach is terrible. As a senior advocate for the seniors, you cannot assume all seniors have computers or the skills to use and comprehend your way of wording the things. I mean, I myself, I'm a senior, I have to put the dictionary next to me sometimes when I'm reading these things. So, I mean, that has to change. You have to disclose things to us. You have to explain things better, as the last man said, and remove that fair market value out of your vocabulary. Thank you.
Thank you. Ann Morrison. And while Ann's making her way up, she is the last person who has not already spoken. We have one other speaker that wanted to speak again. If you want to speak, now would be the time to fill it out.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I just want to let everyone know that I'm first-generation American. I speak a foreign language also. Nobody speaks my language. I understand how the Spanish community feel. But however, there are other people that are also disadvantaged like myself. I'm disabled. I live in Pasadena. I lived there for over 30 years in a Caltrans home, and it was about time that I had the opportunity to buy that home. I have gone through so much because of maintenance with Caltrans, so it's just been horrific. However, all these new letters about you can't do EIR, you can't do this is Caltrans, this is so-and-so, and you're just confusing every single person on earth. I swear to God, I'm a very intelligent person. I'm able to read, I'm able to understand pretty well, but I don't have a PhD in whatever it is that you stand for. I'm so sorry. Thank you.
Mr. Brisset?
When I came in this evening, the consultants from Sereno Associates said I'd be able to speak a second time, and then when I turned in my card for the second speaker, I was told I couldn't speak a second time. So I then submitted my card directly to Garrett Danrath, who is the person who's receiving all comments on the EIR. He then sent my card to Ron Kaczynski over here at Caltrans, and then they changed their mind. So that Caltrans was trying to revert the process they've had for the last year and a half of allowing a hearing to be held and have hour or 2 hours of dead time once everybody has spoken, even though people want to speak again. My comment on the DEIR is that a mitigation measure must be proposed that adjusts the median, moderate, and low-income categories. This is the 2015 income category list for Los Angeles County adopted by HCD. HCD adjusted the low-income category for LA County, which is usually 80% of median. But HCD, under the law they're allowed to do, under the federal regulations, they adopted a low-income category for households from 1 to 8 people that exceeds the median category. And they did this because of the high housing costs in Los Angeles County, that they adjusted the low income. And Caltrans, likewise, for purposes of the Riberi bill, could adjust the low-income category, adjust the moderate-income category, and adjust the median-income category for purposes of the Riberi bill to reflect the incomes in these 3 zip codes. And I want to turn in this copy of the excerpt from the HCD housing numbers for 2015. So I'll give this to you. I brought with me tonight 11 copies of the draft relocation impact report prepared by Caltrans. As I said last week, the metadata for this report says that it was prepared on April 1st, 2015. But it was not released until July 1st, 2015, which then limited its ability to be included in the overall SR 710 freeway EIR and limited its ability to be included in the comments on the EIR on the Affordable Sales Program. So that the draft relocation impact report means that these deadlines, both on the regulations and on the EIR, should be extended. The draft relocation impact report does not say what regulations or rules it was prepared under, and so that it needs to be more explicit on how they determined 148 families will be displaced. They need to be more explicit how many of those are in which of the 3 cities. I'm not saying reveal the address of the people they've calculated, but reveal which cities are going to have the need to relocate the largest number of families. And that environmental impact, the location of where the displacement is going to occur, has not been evaluated in this draft environmental impact report. And as I said last week, and as I said earlier, Caltrans has a duty under CEQA, under 21004 of the Public Resources Code, to mitigate all environmental impacts under the Riberi bill and under the general laws of Caltrans. Streets and Highways Code section 118.6 requires Caltrans to have regulations for all aspects of its sales program, not just the Riberi bill in this corridor, not just the affordable program, but for all aspects. The sale of the vacant properties, the sale of the vacant land, the sale of the nonprofits to like Sequoia School or Ronald McDonald House, and how they're going to choose which nonprofits they're going to select to either take the properties that are occupied or take the other properties. These regulations and the environmental impact report fail to analyze the entirety of the sales program, and EIR needs to be corrected to include all sales, not just the affordable sales. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Tom Williams.
Two bites at the apple. Dr. Tom Williams, 4117 Barrel Road, El Sereno, 900321712. Okay, 4 basic elements. As a member of the LA 32 Neighborhood Council Board, I will be holding workshops on the sales of properties in El Sereno at the El Sereno Library, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursdays from 3 to 5, both to collect your comments and try to help you understand this monster that we have. Okay, another one. If the project provides that if there's any excess money from the sales of property, it will be divvied up amongst the 3 cities and Alhambra and La Cañada Flintridge. Why are they getting any money? They have no skin in the game. Well, that's the way it goes. Welcome to Caltrans. Okay, there's another thing. It says that the alternatives of the SR 710 North study determines who's going to be impacted and when the property might be for sale. However, it doesn't show a map of the current alternatives and the properties involved. So, which one? We don't know because the project description doesn't show us where the alternatives are and which properties they're going to affect. Okay, there's one last one. For part of the SR 710 North, we have a letter from CD14, LA City Council member Jose Huizar, that said, hey guys, remember that there is a City Council resolution of Los Angeles City that says, hey, not in our backyard. It says, the portal shall be south of Valley Boulevard. Well, they got a little bit to the north. And that there should be no construction beneath the city of LA. Therefore, how can you have impacts from a tunnel alternative that goes against a resolution unanimous in 2012 by the City of Los Angeles City Council? It seems strange. Is that an impact? I think so. Thank you.
Thank you. Hugo Garcia. Oh, I'll be very brief. I'm just going to finish up a comment that was omitted. And it's just a conclusion of what UCT is requesting. There's 4 bullet points. That Caltrans add an additional 3 months to the original public comment deadline of 8/24/2015. This would extend it to November 24th, 2015. That Caltrans issue a Spanish language DEIR CD to all Caltrans households so that they don't miss anybody that needs it. That Caltrans issue a copy of the 2015 DRIR to all Caltrans households in English and Spanish. That Caltrans hold 2 additional DEIR workshops in the El Sereno community, 1 in English and 1 in Spanish. So we would appreciate a timely response to our request, and we thank you on behalf of United Caltrans Tenants and El Sereno Organizing Committee, and there'll be CC of this letter to Senator Kevin De Leon, Assembly Member Jimmy Gomez, LA City Council Member Jose Huizar, LA County Supervisor Hilda Solis, Senator Ed Hernandez, Senator Carol Liu, and Assembly Member Chris Holden. Thanks.
Thank you.
So that was the last speaker card that I have. It's about 7:45, a little bit shy of that. But I do want to remind you that we will be sticking around by the boards if you have any further questions or would like to review some of that information. And then there's also still those computers open where you can type a comment in. I want to thank everyone for taking the time out of their busy schedule to be here tonight, and you're adjourned.